I just got back from watching the third Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and my expectations were pretty high on this one. After watching all the trailers and even the marketing strategies for this movie is amazing. Promoting the movie all around the world and releasing toys, clothing, ugly Sonic sweaters, which I can't even believe Paramount was able to pull this off. There's even customizable Build-A-Bears inspired by these beloved Sonic characters, which I'm not gonna lie, I was kinda tempted to buy one, even though I haven't really owned a Build-A-Bear since I was like 7 or something. You're never too old to play with toys, by the way. There's even some collectible goodies you can buy when you go see the movie in theaters to eat with your popcorn. Just when you thought this was a genius move by Paramount, they even went above and beyond by releasing a special Sonic the Hedgehog 3 movie working cartridge for the classic Sega Genesis. I don't even own a Genesis and I still wanted one. And to top it all off, we got the movie DLC for Shadow Generations, which I'm still going to do a review on that game soon. Very soon. My name is Retroplex and here's my full-fledged review on Sonic the Hedgehog 3. This is a final warning to anyone who hasn't watched the movie yet, so I recommend watching the movie first, and then come back to this spoiler-contaminated review. Now let's get to it. First off, I just want to say that all of the main actors and actresses did a fantastic job portraying their roles. But we all know who we're here for. The man himself, Keanu Reeves as Shadow the Hedgehog. He's been highly requested to be the voice of Shadow by the Sonic community since the post-credit scene from Sonic 2. And I promise you, if you've been around long enough to be somewhat familiar with the whole Sonic lore and with Shadow's backstory, you're going to love Keanu Reeves' performance as Shadow. I personally think he did a phenomenal job capturing the raw emotions from Shadow in the games, and if you were to ask me to describe his performance in one word, I'd say it was absolutely breathtaking.
You're breathtaking! You're all breathtaking!
I absolutely love the opening sequence of the movie, with Shadow attacking all of the gun agents one by one and escaping Prison Island. There was even a little flashback of Maria trying to play Live and Learn on an acoustic guitar, which I thought was a really nice touch. Then it transitions to Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, and they're all competing in a race, seeing who's the fastest one, and Sonic's just being all cocky. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna win, I'm the fastest one." And then he just ends up losing to Tails and Knuckles, and it all turns out to be a setup for a surprise party for Sonic, celebrating his anniversary of when he came to Earth for the very first time. And we got the whole family celebrating, and it's a really wholesome scene. Sonic even finds his old hangout spot before he met Tom and Maddie, which is an homage to the first Sonic movie. The scene also reveals that Sonic is still grieving over the loss of his guardian Longclaw, and that Tom reminds him that no matter how much pain and sadness he went through, he didn't let that change who he is as a person. And this scene is actually really important to what's about to happen in the near end of the movie. Then Team Sonic is sent to Tokyo by director Rockwell to investigate a threat on the loose, aka Shadow. I still find it pretty funny when Rockwell calls Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles Team Sonic. Knuckles just acts all salty about it, and he's like, "Team Sonic? Who came up with that name? It should be called Team Knuckles." Then they encounter Shadow for the very first time, and Shadow's just beating the shit out of every one of them, and it's just so freaking cool to see Shadow being underestimated by Team Sonic. And then he's just breaking Knuckles' knuckles, karate kicking Tails, and throwing Sonic around like a doll. Then we see Shadow pull up on his motorcycle with a gun and warns them not to follow him. And Sonic, of course, does exactly the opposite and tries to confront Shadow with this really sick chasing scene. Then Team Sonic meets up with Commander Walters, aka Olive Garden guy, at the Chow Garden restaurant and tells him about Shadow's origin story. That is until a bunch of the Eggman drones show up out of nowhere. Then a mysterious figure on a motorcycle, who shortly revealed to be Agent Stone, takes out all the bots and Commander Walters dies? I think? Honestly, one of the very few things that I didn't really love about this movie was how they handled Walter's quote-unquote death. If he actually died, I feel like he could have been honored in some way at the end of the movie. They could have had like some sort of memorial service for him, and then have Olive Garden cater for his wake or something. Instead, his death was kind of just swept under the rug and just forgotten. I don't know, that's just what I think. I also really love the visual presentation of the Chow Garden Cafe, which is obviously inspired by Sonic Adventure 2. With the Chow mascots and the live entertainment. Oh, and you can't forget about Tails being mistaken for Detective Pikachu. It kind of blows my mind that they referenced Pokemon in a Sonic movie, and Knuckles doing his Pikachu impression was just a cherry on top for me. Team Sonic then teams up with Dr. Robotnik, and I am so glad that Jim Carrey came out of his retirement for this, because he was made for the role of the live-action Robotnik. His performance does not disappoint whatsoever. I also really love his evolution throughout each Sonic movie. What I mean by that is that each movie looks more and more accurate like the video game counterpart of Eggman, and not to mention his new suit looks amazing. And this movie also brings in Professor Gerald Robotnik, who is also played by Jim Carrey. That's right, double the villains, double the fun. And it was really funny to see Gerald introducing himself to his grandson for the very first time. They even broke the fourth wall when they simultaneously said, "The resemblance is uncanny, as you are played by the exact same actor." And they both just looked directly at the audience. The last thing I expect to see in a Sonic movie is a fourth wall break, and that joke just cracked me up. There's even a montage of Eggman and his grandpa spending time with each other, like going to an amusement park, watching fireworks, Gerald teaching Eggman how to ride a bike, and even that one scene from trailer 2 of Eggman seeing Gerald dressed up as Santa Claus, and he just fucking jumps on him like a maniac, taking the Christmas tree down with him. It's all just some really hilariously stupid stuff that I'm just glad that they put into the movie, even if it's not relevant to the main storyline. Oh yeah, and Agent Stone's there too, acting as the third wheel. One of my favorite parts of the movie is when Team Sonic is all chained up and Shadow drops the orb gadget in the most badass way, opening up the black hole to suck them in, and you have Knuckles grasping onto the rope with his bare teeth, while Sonic passes one of his rings to Tails to open up a portal to get out. That scene was just so freaking cool to watch. I also really love the flashbacks with Shadow and Maria, especially the one where Maria sees Shadow for the first time in his capsule, and he sees that Maria is very friendly and playful to him, and she even draws a face outside of his capsule to make him look like a rabbit. Then he realizes that she doesn't see him as a threat at all. Then they show more flashbacks of them watching movies, dancing to music, and even roller skating, which is all very cute and wholesome, but at the same time very heartbreaking because we all know what's gonna happen eventually to Maria as she gets caught into the explosion and dies, and you can just see the sadness and anger in Shadow's eyes. And that event is what creates Shadow's character and his motivation in the movie on why he wants revenge on the world, and all of that build up to create Shadow's drama that was presented very, very well. Then Team Sonic calls for Tom and Maddie to help them infiltrate the Ark in London, and this part in particular is what kinda surprised me actually. So we all know from the trailers and the character posters that Maddie's sister Rachel and her husband Randall will take part in this movie, but it makes me wonder how would their characters be relevant to the main storyline without adding some kind of unnecessary fillers that messes with the story. You take one of Tails' gadgets and shapeshift into Rachel and Randall, and that is what Tom and Maddie do when they infiltrate the Ark, and it is genius. That is another thing I really love about this movie, is that the human characters, not counting the two Eggman, take the backseat for this one and don't have some weird, silly side story that interferes with the main plot, unlike the first two movies. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do have a lot of respect for Tom, Maddie, and Agent Stone, and their main roles in the plot, but at the end of the day, this is a Sonic the Hedgehog movie. There's also a scene with Eggman and Gerald wearing these weird spandex suits, and they try to sneak through the lasers without being burned alive, and then they realize that their suits are laser proof and out of the ordinary. They pull a fucking dance number, which is very similar to the Sonic and Tails dance scene in the second movie. I did feel like that scene was a bit much, but it was still pretty funny. Then there's the scene where Director Rockwell catches the team red-handed, and she activates these gravity-changing floor panels trapping the team. And a bit earlier in the movie, when Team Sonic was discussing the plan to infiltrate the Ark, Sonic tells Knuckles that in case of an emergency, Knuckles will break the glass and have him hide on top of one of the buildings. I forget which one it was, but Bro was waiting for his moment once Sonic calls Knuckles in for help, and he comes in with the flames of disaster. It is one of my favorite Knuckles moments in this movie. Then Tom disguises himself as Commander Walters, that is until Shadow encounters him and knocks out Tom, now realizing that that was Tom and not Walters. And this is when shit gets serious, when Sonic sees Tom on the floor unconscious and looks at Shadow completely pissed off. That's when you know when Sonic looks pissed, he is not playing around. And you have Team Sonic and Maddie watching as Tom is taken to the hospital, and they're all genuinely worried for him as he's fighting for his life. And this has to be one of the most intense Team Sonic moments, as Sonic wants revenge on Shadow, and Tails and Knuckles tries to talk him out of it. Then Sonic threatens Knuckles to tell him where the Master Emerald is, but refuses to because they all made a vow to not use the Emerald in situations like this. They were even about to go all out and just have a one-on-one brawl as their eyes started glowing, until Knuckles surrenders and tells Sonic where it is. He tells Sonic that the Emerald is guarded by the one warrior he knows and trusts. Then transitions to Wade fucking Whipple back at Green Hills, playing hockey with the Emerald, and Sonic just effortlessly snatches the Emerald out of Wade's hand. The fact that Knuckles trusts Wade with all of his life to guard the Master Emerald, just for him to fail miserably, is both hilarious and stupid. It's honestly kind of refreshing to see Wade have very minimal screen time in the movie since the Knuckles series. If you know, you know. He then transforms into Super Sonic and throws Shadow around like a sack of potatoes. And here comes the moment we've all been waiting for, when Sonic loses his super form and him and Shadow both go for the Emerald at the same time. Now we got both Super Sonic and Super Shadow. I absolutely love the part where Shadow transforms and counteracts Sonic's punch and says, "You are right about one thing. This ends now." And it's just a back and forth of these two fighting each other to the death. And it's just such an insane fight scene with amazing cinematography. And as Sonic's about to finish Shadow, he's even encouraging Sonic to finish him off. Sonic then remembers what Tom told him at the very beginning of the movie on how he didn't let his pain change who he is. And then he realizes the damages he's caused and forfeits. And this is when Sonic and Shadow really have a chance to bond and share with each other their lost ones, and how plotting revenge won't fix their problems. It's a very heartfelt scene, and I really love the dynamic between Sonic and Shadow in this scene, which definitely reminds me of the scene in Sonic 2 where Sonic and Knuckles were stranded on the island and they started bonding. And here comes the absolute highlight for me in this movie, is when Sonic and Shadow set aside their differences. Now they're teaming up with each other, they transform back into their super forms, and we got Live and Learn playing in the background as Sonic and Shadow take down all the Eggman robots. And it's literally straight out of Sonic Adventure 2, and it has to be one of, if not the greatest fight scene in any Sonic movie. They even did the iconic pose as well. There's even a fight scene between Gerald and Eggman as he finds out that Gerald's plan all along was to completely destroy the world and doesn't actually give a shit about his grandson, and was just doing it for Maria all along. I'd say Eggman had it coming though, as Agent Stone tries to warn him about Gerald's plan, and he just completely denies it, and he just thinks he's jealous of him. And that is when Dr. Eggman has this like redemption arc, when he finishes Gerald by poking him in the ass with the quill, launching him into the singularity, which I think is literally the most Eggman way of defeating the villain. He then sacrifices himself to save the world, and it's broadcasted on this like Jumbotron thing, and he shouts out to Agent Stone and admits that he does care for him, leaving Stone all emotional. I think that's a very bittersweet moment for both Eggman and Agent Stone, but I don't think that'll be the last we see of Dr. Eggman. If he was able to survive from that fall from the end of Sonic 2 without any explanation on how he survived, then I'm sure he'll be back for the next one, if Jim Carrey agrees to come back for the 4th Sonic movie. Then it transitions back to Sonic and Shadow working together until Sonic loses consciousness and his super form and nearly plummets to his death. Then Tails tries to rescue Sonic to open up a portal, but it's too much for Tails and he ends up passing out too. But then Knuckles comes to the rescue and saves Sonic and Tails just in time. Then Shadow sacrifices himself too when he takes off his inhibitor rings, and as he does, he once again remembers the flashbacks of him and Maria. The scenes with Team Sonic following Shadow remembering Maria one last time as he sacrifices himself, and Eggman dedicating his last words to Agent Stone. You mix all those scenes together and you just get like an emotional like roller coaster and this like send off, and just like that the movie ends exactly how it started. Oh, and Tom's alive, thank goodness. It ends off with Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles once again racing against each other, and I think that is the perfect ending to this movie. But now we got the post-credit scene where Sonic encounters Metal Sonic for the very first time, and Sonic is acting all cocky about it and how he thinks Metal Sonic is just cosplaying him, until he summons a bunch of the Metal Sonic clones jumping at Sonic all at once, until someone comes to the rescue, and that someone is none other than Amy Rose. About In a time they add her to the Sonic cinematic universe, which all leads up to the 4th Sonic movie. That's right, it's been officially confirmed that we're getting Sonic movie number 4 coming in 2027. So we got a long way to go for this one, but I'm sure it's definitely gonna be worth the wait. Oh yeah, and Shadow's alive as well, as it's revealed in the post-credit scene. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is Sonic the Hedgehog 3. I think this movie is absolutely fantastic. Not only do I think this is the strongest one in the Sonic cinematic universe, but I think this is the greatest video game movie that I have seen so far, with amazing character development, intense fight scenes, and excellent cinematography, giving this movie a strong 9 out of 10. I hope you enjoyed my review on Sonic 3, and if you did, feel free to press the thumbs up button below the video. And if you want to support the channel as well, feel free to hit the subscribe button, and comment below on what you think of the movie if you have seen it already. I'm curious to know your thoughts. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go rewatch Sonic 3. See ya.